Okay, this is David Manel. I guess we'll get started. Today's webinar is called The New Powers of Accounting Power, and I'm going to be going over some new enhancements that we have. I'm going to touch upon one or two things that we've had relatively recently, but they're not completely new. And while I'm showing some of the features, I'm going to show a few other features in the same areas. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, the basic things I'm going to be showing is just we have some new icons, a little bit of a new look for some of the screens. I'm going to show a lot of different financial statement enhancements, mainly dealing with ease of printing things, but a little bit else. And the idea that we now offer 13-period accounting. And this is very prevalent in the hospitality and the food industries. So by being able to have this and being able to offer it to your clients or to potential clients in those areas can increase your revenue. I'm going to show digital checks. I've shown them before, but we have added new the ability to receive payments using digital checks. And one of the reasons I'm showing it again is we just want people to start adopting it more because it seems to me, number one, it makes it very easy to add bill payment services for you, which is something that can increase your revenues. It can cut down if you're using it yourself or if your clients are using it. It can help cut down on the receivables because when it's easy for somebody to pay, they do pay more often. I'm also going to show the customer invoice templates. We used to have just that you had the ability to choose our one template for invoices that are going out, and now we have a few of them there. And I'm also going to go into the improved dashboard and a few other items. Okay, so the first thing is we have these new icons. One thing to point out here is the house now means that it's going to take you to the new client or select client screen. That's a little bit different than what it used to be. And right next to it, the graph will take you to the dashboard. That's a little bit more intuitive for people who are new to the system. This isn't all that new, but this is a good thing for you to know. You can always tell the last time the program was updated by going to the select client screen, and it will show you right there the date of the last update. And also we have moved the location because the icons are a little bigger and also because it just fits better in the middle of the client name and also the current period that you're working on. Even though this is about accounting power, there also are a few new icons on the administration screen. They're over here. Same basic functions. This is for website relief in order to take you in to edit the website, for passwords, and a few other things. One other thing is this screen is now called the administration screen. So if you ever go to use our launcher to move around, the name is now the administration screen. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show is the 12-month trailing income statement. And this is something people have been looking for quite a while, I guess. And the way you access it is you have to go to income statement, you have to click on comparative, and you see we have a lot of options. And I'm going to touch on a few of these also, even though they're not new, in a few minutes. So you select comparative, and then you select a trailing 12 months. And what that will do is you see the current period is 6/30/2017, is it'll bring up an income statement for the last 12 months. So this income statement can span across more than 1 year. And there's a lot of different uses for this income statement. A lot of places where it can help you or it can help your clients. Of course, one which is maybe most obvious is it can give a better trend. So like if we look at this client, we see this year the incomes in 2017, they're around 200,000 per period. Doesn't really look bad. They go up and down, I guess, seasonally. But when you see the whole year in the whole 12 months, you can see that compared to the year before, the sales have gone down. And of course, this could be due to the fact it's a seasonal business or a lot of different things. But it's good for noticing trends or allowing your clients to see trends. Another good feature for this, sometimes you'll have a client whose business is seasonal, but for some reason they're still on a calendar year. So this will make it easier for you to compare the complete prior periods from the last 12 months. And this can be included in the whole group of statements that print out when you print out a complete packet. Also, although it's not here to see because it's coming, or at least we're planning to have it coming, is the ability that you could have more than one type of income statement to go out with your complete packet. So right now, if you had the trailing 12 months, that's the one that would go out with the financials. But we're also planning to add, let's say if you wanted to have a regular year-to-date or something and a 12-month trailing, you could include that in a packet that would get saved to the cloud cabinet, or that could be emailed out to your clients. Now, the other statements we have here that are comparative, they're pretty straightforward. Period to period compares this year, a certain period against last year. Quarter to quarter, same thing. Year to date, very straightforward. But a couple that maybe need a little bit of touching on are the consecutive periods and the 13-column report. So first I'm going to show the consecutive periods. And here it's you specify how many periods you want to show. Now, this comparative is also for like if you wanted to compare a lot of prior years. But in this case, it's just prior periods, even though it says years here. And the number that you enter here, like the one that I entered was 4, means it's going to be the current year, the current period plus the 4 most recent periods. And if you're doing comparative prior year statements, it's the same thing. It means the current year plus the comparative prior years. And just as a quick little aside, if you're starting up new and you have a client and you have information from, say, 3 or 4 prior years and you want to be able to have comparative statements, you can go into the trial balance entry screen for those older periods and enter information and then print out the financials with all the comparisons up to 4 years. So anyway, the consecutive periods simply prints out, in the case that I showed, the current period and 4 prior periods. The 13-period report, what is different about that from the trailing 12 months is the trailing 12 months spans more than 1 year, whereas the 13-column report is basically a month-by-month report year to date. So you can see here that it's showing those various months. Although once again, this is very good for analysis purposes with your clients. Okay, so that's the first thing that we added as far as a printing enhancement. Now I'm going to show some enhancements that we've added for printing departmental income statements. We've made it easier to print more than one type of department or to select which ones you want to print. So the first thing I'm going to go into is how to do the select departments. You simply come over here, you click on the box, select departments. A drop down will come out. It'll have all the departments that you have for that client. You select which ones. It's the thing that most people now are very familiar with in Windows, I guess, and in modern systems, is you can use the Control key to tag individual ones, or you can use the Shift key to tag a whole group in the middle. So once you select which departments that you want to print, whereas before, if I wanted to print these 3 departments, I would have to separately go out, first print Mammoth Mountain, then print Sun Valley, then print Snow Summit. Now I can select these 3, and they would print in the complete batch when I print a whole run with balance sheet, income statement, maybe cover sheet, table of contents, etc. So in this case, there we have the first one, the Sun Valley income statement, and the Snow Summit income statement. Now there's a couple of other things under the all departments that just need a little bit of clarification for what they are. All departments, I mean, it seems straightforward. What this means is now when you print out a complete batch, it's going to print every single department income statement that you have. So if you have 20 departments, it'll print the balance sheet, then it'll print each income statement for each of your 20 departments, then it will go down to the retained earnings, and it would also include all of these items. So that's the all departments. And the combined is basically, if you don't really want it to be a departmental income statement, you just want it to be a regular income statement. So it puts all the departments together. It's pretty straightforward, but sometimes people are mixed up on it. The next one I want to show, departmental column. I mean, of course, this has been around for a long time, but it's excellent for comparing different departments or locations for your clients. So in this case, you can see all the different departments. You get the income statement. You can say, oh yeah, Mammoth Mountain's really doing good. Snow Summit's not doing so good. Or you can compare how all the different departments are. And it gives a lot of good information in a concise form. So now I'm going to give a few tips. As long as I'm showing the departmental, I might as well just give a couple of tips on different ways to find things that are missing or correct things in departments. The first thing is, one of the most common problems with departmental printing and departmental entries are that certain transactions were accidentally not coded to a department. So one of the best ways to do it is with that same income statement that I just printed out. If you have any that are unassigned, there'll be an unassigned column. So you can come here when you print it out, you can look at it, and you'll be able to see exactly which areas have unassigned transactions. Another good way to find the unassigned transactions is you go to Financials, View Financials. And from here, when you get to department, you select all departments. And every department that has, or every expense or income that has a department set up with it, it'll have the name of the department right next to it. So you see, you have purchases Mammoth, purchases Squaw, purchases Sun Valley, or salaries Mammoth, Squaw, Sun Valley. But you see these two lines, purchases and salaries here, they don't have any department next to them. So that implies that they were not done, or they weren't entered properly. But what you can do from this screen that you can't do from the other one is you can click on the amount, and that will take you right to the transactions, and then you could make the edits and correct it right there. And while I'm not showing the move, If you had a whole bunch that were assigned to the wrong department or something, you could go into Write Up and then Move. And from the Move screen, you could move transactions from one department to another en masse. So this is what I would have found if I drilled in on purchases. I would see that this one department had not, this one transaction had not been assigned a department. Then I could click here, since these were from General Journal, and it would take me right to the GJ where I could correct it. A new feature that we have is under trial balance journals is we now have a department column. So this is another easy way to find transactions that weren't properly coded for the department. So you go to trial balance journals and you select which one. In my case, it was a bookkeeping client, so I went to the purchase journal, and then I can see all the transactions and what they were assigned to. Okay, so let's move on. The Departmental Transaction Report. This is another good way. You can print it out, have it in front of you. It's a hard copy to keep, and it's also a good hard copy to go for when you're trying to do review work or to find out what's missing. So you come to Reports, Transaction Reports, Departmental Transactions. You can select which department you want to print, or you could select all of them. And the example I'm going to show is where I selected all. When you select all, the printout will come. It'll show for each department all the transactions that were entered. And at the very end of the report, there'll be a page for no department. So you'll see all the transactions that were entered without a department going there. So these are all a lot of easy ways to hunt down and correct any mistakes. One other thing is if you see that for a particular vendor, you know that this one is always tied to a particular department, you can set in a default department, and that way when that vendor transaction is done, it's always automatically there. So in this case, I'm saying all tourist machinery is the Squaw Valley department, and it will always, as soon as I do any transaction from all tourist machinery, it will make sure that it's Squaw Valley. Of course, you can then, when you're doing the transaction, you can change it if it needs to be changed, or you could allocate it if it needed to be allocated. Okay, so that's it with the departments. The next printing thing I want to show is page breaks. Now, I mean, we've always had something in there for page breaks, but we've improved it dramatically. So I'm going to show how you can set it. And here's an example. I'm sure everybody has clients where there's a long list of expenses probably. And you get down to the bottom of the page, like in this one, and it just didn't fit. And so then the break, in this case, I set it up so it would look bad. Automatically, the page break shows something, it just doesn't fit right. It doesn't flow well to have the total expenses on that next page. Now, we do, although I'm not going to go into it too much, but we do some work trying to, when it's close, trying to alleviate these problems and go to the next page or something. When it's a long list like that, we really can't break and put it anywhere without your leading us where you want it to break. So that's kind of the state of where it is now. And the other thing is what we had before was we had just one page break after operating revenue before cost of goods sold. So sometimes that's okay, but on this particular one, you'd have like 5 lines or 4 lines, and then everything else would be on the next one. And it probably wouldn't have or may not have fit well anyway on the next page. Okay, so how do you take advantage of what we've now added? Is we've added the ability to put 2 page breaks in the income statement. Although before I get to that, I just want to point out also, for the balance sheet, it still remains the same, that there's just an option for the page break before liabilities. And the reason for that is, as of now, we haven't seen a lot of, actually, I don't know that I've seen any demand for a break other than at that spot there. But if we see it, then maybe we can also add for the classes on the balance sheet too. But what you would do is you go to Financials, General Options under the Preferences, and you have the ability to say which class you want the page break to be before. So if you click on the drop down, you'll see a listing of all the classes. In this case, I want to have it before operating expenses. And I also did it, I put in the second one. Let me just go back again to show you. I put in the second one so there'd be a second break before widget expenses, because on this one, there's a long list of expenses. So to make them fit well, it'll look better this way. So what this gives you is more natural looking page breaks. So here's the gross profit, which is a good natural place to separate one page with the profit and then expenses afterwards. Then you'll see the total operating expenses, total selling expenses, all on the one page. And then since I said I wanted it to break before widgets, it'll break again so that the widgets will be clean and together, widget expenses all in one spot. So that's the page break enhancement. I think it's a very powerful one in order to make the financial statements look much better. One other thing, although you won't really notice anything, but it may make a lot of difference in what we can do in the future for financial statements, is we've really gone in and completely redone the code behind the scenes for the financial statements. So this will make it easier for adding new things and changing things internally for us to give you more things. So because of that, feel free to send me any suggestions you have for what you would like in the financial statements. And quickly, although I'll say it again probably at the end, but my email is dmunnell@accountantsworld.com. And I really do appreciate getting suggestions. The next thing I want to show, although there's really not a lot to show to it, there's a lot of work involved in getting it there, but the 13-period accounting. The main things that you need to know once you have if you have a client who needs it, is how to set it up. And what you need to do is you have to go to the company screen, the setup screen, and you'll go to change number of periods, and you enter 13 4-week periods. Once you do that, you'll have a book year end and also a book year end. I mean, a book year begin and a book year end. And because of the nature that the number of days in a year and the number of weeks in the year, eventually you have to have one longer period to take care of. So when you get to that one, you'll be changing the book year in on that particular year when you go to pick up the 53rd week. So once you click change, it will change it for you. And as you see now, it's a bunch of 4-week periods. It's the 28th to 25th of February and on up until what was at the time I did it, the current period, which was August 12th. Now, when you go into the other screens, everywhere that you go, if you're on the trial balance screen or the financial printing or some reporting screens, it will have the proper periods here for you. And it will allow you to view, review, and do all the normal work you would do. If you're doing Journal entries, adjusting entries, you'll now have 13 periods for them instead of 12. And if you have clients who are existing and they're already set up, based upon the dates of the transactions, we'll put them into the new proper periods. So even though there wasn't really a lot for me to show here, this is something that can make it where you can offer services to clients who it wasn't easy for you to service before, and also for a good way to increase your revenue. So not a lot for me to show, but a lot that can mean for you, and also there was a lot behind the scenes that needed to be done to get this in there. Now, digital checks. As I mentioned before, we've had the digital checks for a while, maybe 5 or 6 months. Some people are using them, but we really feel it would be very advantageous to more and more people to start using it. So let me go over a little bit of how you would set up with it. First of all, it's powered by Checkbook IO, which is a company that we're partnering with. It makes it easy to pay bills. So if you want to offer a bill payment service, I'm not going through the whole bill paying cycle on this webinar, but if you wanted to be offering bill payment services, it's so easy. You enter the bill for the clients. The client approves them if they have to approve, and then all you do is you go to the bill payment screen, tag the ones, and boom, they're done. So it really makes it very easy to offer a service like that, and it makes it very easy for your clients to pay their bills too. I mean, to have their bills paid. Now, we've added the ability, which before we had the ability for paying vendors, but now we've also added the ability to receive payments. The functionality is pretty much the same. I'm going to show quickly a couple of screens on it, though. Basically, when the vendor, this is for the paying bills, the vendor will receive an email that you send out. They enter the information, and then the funds are sent to account. The customer, same thing. Customer receives an email, and they pay using the same basic method. There is a fee. It's a $1 per check fee, and it's paid by the sender. Now, $1 per check compared to the cost of printing out a check, stuffing an envelope, mailing out the envelope is really a very inexpensive thing. And from an accounting point of view, when it's done this way, it's so much better because all the journal entries are done very easily for you without any work on your side. So let me go through how you would register for digital checks. You go to Company, Bank, Credit Card screen. You click on the digital check link. Once you do that, it'll bring up a screen with the Checkbook IO. If you already had an account, you would log in, although for most cases, this is where somebody would register. They click on register, and then you authorize the access. So you enter the name, email address, which has to be a unique email address. So if you have 3 different clients, kind of from the same company, they would have to have 3 different email addresses. Not the same company. If you have 3 different companies, and it's all the same person, lots of times you'll have several companies owned by one of your clients. They do each need to have a unique email address. And then they enter the password and confirm the password. The next step is you say if it's individual or business. It'll bring you to this screen, enter the business information, the tax ID, birth date, and social security number. These are things to verify that whoever is signing up truly is proper to be doing it. And finally, once all the steps are done there, you'll come back to the bank account screen. And from here, you have to enable the digital checks for that particular client. So what you do is you go to the box where it says digital checks enabled, You click on the box, and now one of two things can happen. One would be you're going to get this little message, successfully mapped digital check account. And that would mean you're all set up and ready to go. The other thing that could happen is it might be read and not do it. And the reason why it wouldn't work is if the last 4 digits of the bank account number in here don't coincide with the bank account that was set up during the registration with Checkbook IO. So that way we're verifying that it is in fact the right one, and it's like an extra security check there. So if you're trying to do it and it doesn't work, that's 9 out of 10 times the reason. Okay, so now once the digital checks are set up, I'm not going through the whole bill payment service, but this is an idea where 4 particular bills were approved to be paid. You'll come to this screen, and they can be paid in a batch. So instead of having to print each one individually, maybe you have 30 different things here. You can easily and quickly print all 30, not print, to have the 30 different checks go out, an email go out to each vendor. And when you're on the screen, you'll see if any of the vendors don't have an email. Because if they don't have an email, of course, you can't email out the payment. So as you can see, George Steinbrenner, he has an email, Haas Cartwright, and also the Indio Insurance Company. Whereas this one, you would have to hold off and then go in and get the email. Or sometimes the vendor may not have an email and just pay that one by check. So once they're all tagged, you make sure they're okay. You simply click on digital checks, and then it would go out to them. And the same thing could be done doing them one at a time also. You just go to the individual check screen, click on digital checks, and it sends the email out to the clients. To the vendors. Now, once they've gone out, what's the other side? The side that your client's vendors will receive. The client's vendor, they'll receive an invoice. This says Sandbox because this was in our test environment, but Dave Manel has sent a digital check, no more paper, and then just send a digital check to Dave Manel. So they clicked on the email, they'll see a check, they have a choice here, they can either deposit it online. They also have the ability to print out the check, and then either they can wait to get a check and deposit it, to print it out and deposit it. Although the way I did it when I tried it is I printed it out, took a little picture with my phone, which pretty much everybody knows how to do nowadays, and then it automatically would be deposited that way. That's if they don't really want to give the information. But deposit online is much quicker and much better. Once they've done it one time, once the vendor's done it the first time, the next time all the information is automatically saved. So later when I sent a check, it automatically would know the account that it's going to, and it sends an email saying the date that it will be deposited. So the client will receive a notification who the digital checks were sent out to, or a request. The client can also go out to Checkbook IO, and from here they see a dashboard, and on the dashboard they can see the activity. Of course, since this is like a test account that I'm using, there's not really a lot of activity, but they can come in here, they would see everything that was sent. It helps with the seeing for cash flow, because they see how much money is coming in and how much is scheduled to be delivered. So if they have 100, going out also, they have the ability to cancel it if it's hasn't reached a certain point yet, and also they can see the funds. Now, the opposite side is the receiving of payments. So here for receiving of payments, you send an invoice, or your client will send an invoice out to one of their customers. The customer will receive the email, and from the email they can choose to pay now. And in my case, I also had registered for a merchant account too, which I'm not going into here, but we've had it. So they can pay either by credit card or digital check. They click on that link. Once they click on the link, it'll bring them into a screen. From this screen, they'll see all of the outstanding invoices that could be paid. They select which ones they want to pay, and then they would just click Pay by Digital Check. And then from there on out, all the transactions, all the journal entries, everything's done automatically for you. So it really saves a lot of time that way. And as I mentioned before, it saves because it makes it, when it's easier for people to pay, they do pay more timely. Okay, so that's it for the digital checks. Now I want to show that we've made it much easier to sign up a client to one of our applications. It used to be if you wanted a client in Accounting Power, first you would go to the main setup screen. It's a brand new client. You would enter the information, you would save, and then when you're in Accounting Power, you had to go to the client management screen, and from there click on Sign Up Client and select which client you wanted to sign up to that application. So what we've done now is that you can do it automatically for which applications you want this client to be in. So in this one, I'm setting them up that it's going to be in all of the applications. And so now if I were to go into to Accounting Power, this client would already be there and already set up for me. So I don't have to go anywhere extra anymore in order to do it. But there is a little caveat with that. And that is, when you sign up a client here for Accounting Power, you are also signing them up for bookkeeping. And bookkeeping, there is a monthly fee for bookkeeping. So if it's a client you want to have for bookkeeping, it's fine. You leave it alone. If you're a new client, you have 1 year free without that fee. But if you don't want to be paying for the bookkeeping, or if you don't want this client to be able to do bookkeeping, you can go to that same area that you used to go to in order to sign up a client, and you go to Client Center, Client Management, and then you would just click unsubscribe there to turn it off. And just quickly, although I'm not going into it, what bookkeeping does is gives you the ability to offer bill payment services for clients. You can enter invoices, enter the payments for invoices for both the sales and expenses. So the bookkeeping is a very powerful thing that you can use to increase your revenues. But this makes it much easier to sign them up to the applications. Now, invoice templates. In the past, we had one invoice if you were sending out client invoices. There was customization that you could do to it, but there was just one basic template. So we've added a few different templates. And what I'm going to do here is to just show you the look of the different templates. So we have 4 different ones: standard, professional, contemporary, and modern. So you would come to sales, and then at the bottom of the sales drop down is customize invoices, and you would go there, and then you select which invoice you want. It'll default to standard. This is what the standard invoice looks like. There's also the professional. This is the idea of what the look is for the professional invoice. The contemporary invoice. And you notice this one is red. I'm going to show later that you do have ability to customize colors. I don't know that many people know it or use it in Accounting Power, but you do have that ability. and finally the modern look. So basically what these different templates do is they just move the information around a little bit, where it's displayed on the form and how it's displayed. And it gives your clients a little bit of room to choose different things that they want. But it doesn't just stop there, the customization that you can do on an invoice. So I'm going to go into just a little bit of what can be done for the regular customization on the invoices. Once, as I said before, you go to that screen under Sales, Customize Invoices, and it brings you to this screen. You have to click that you want to be able to customize the information to appear on your invoices. And once you do that, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can choose you want the company name there, you want the address to be there. Down here, you can choose what titles you want for the different columns or whether or not you want a column to be there. So if I want to change the order and I wanted description to be first and quantity to be second, I would just change it right here in the drop down. You also have the ability to change the name. So if I didn't want the third one to be called unit price, if I wanted it to be price of product or whatever name you would want, you can just edit it right there, or your customer or your clients can edit it right there and change it. A little bit more on that screen is down at the bottom. You have the ability to enter a footer. So you can enter all the footer content. It's a pretty powerful editor. So you can change font sizes and a few different items there. A few other things that you can do is you have the ability, if you want there to be lines for each rows. In the examples I was showing before, there were no row lines, but there were column separators. So you have the ability to enter row lines if you want them. You have the ability to enter column separators. One or two of the custom invoices, if you're trying to, the other one or two of the templates may not allow for these because they don't fit into the template style itself. And in that case, we don't allow you to try to change that particular thing. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different colors that you can choose in order to put on the invoices. So it gives your clients a good deal of originality when they're doing their invoices. So that's it for that, the invoices. Now the dashboard itself has been improved, and the main improvement is in the look and feel of the graphs. So in this case, here's the net profit and loss comparison. Previously, we would just show like a current going back. Now we'll show the current year and the previous year. If you were using the system, you could, if you go to any of these dots, the income for that period would show up, income or loss for that period. So if you go to any of the points on the graph, you could see that. We also have a revenue and expense comparison. This is where you can see your current year revenue against prior year revenue, current year expenses against prior expenses, and you can see them in a good graphical presentation. Same thing with the budget and actual expense. If you've set up any budgeting, you can come here and you can see actual income against budgeted income, and also actual expenses against budgeted expenses. And then the expense analysis graph has been changed a little bit to make it a little more obvious on a graphical point which expenses, how much they use in each out of the total. So in this case, we see other, which I guess is common. Other is the biggest. Commissions is 20%. Salaries in this company was a very small amount. Now, I really can't show the dashboard without also showing the performance analysis report. The performance analysis report, we enhanced it a little bit to match with the previous graphs, but we also made it that it's very easy to save this. So you can choose to set up a a monthly close report or a yearly close report, and you can choose to add this report in there so that you can set it up that when you close a month, maybe you're going to give your clients an income statement, a balance sheet, and a performance analysis report. And that can either be emailed to the client, or it can also, which is a better method according to, in my mind at least, is that it goes into the cloud cabinet where it can be saved there. It's in a secure spot. Your client can always find it. A year from now, your client's not going to say, well, I want to see my income statement from February 2017 and I don't know where it is. They can always go to the cloud cabinet and pull it up. So anyway, here is the enhancements for it. It looks a lot like the other graphs. There's also a lot of ratios, important ratios that we include here. And then if your client has bookkeeping, you'll be able to see, or they'll be able to see aging summary and who the outstanding bills are due from. And the final thing that I want to show is grouping on budget reports. Now, we have a pretty powerful budget. I'm not going into how to set up the budget, but once the budget is set up, you have the ability here. You can print budget only, budget versus actual, and which we've always had. But before, it always had to be just according to account. But now you have the ability that if you've set up group codes for other reasons, you can also print the budget reports with the group codes. So in my case, I'm going to use the one that was combined, but I'm also going to show the listing of accounts also, just so you can see the difference, I guess. So this is one where it was a budget versus actual report. Gives you a good idea of how our report looks. But in this case, you'll notice all the sales are broken out between the three different accounts. And you'll also notice, as long as I'm showing this report, you see the variance and you also see the percentages. And then if I choose to group it, now I'll see that sales is just showing up as one line on the graph. And there's a lot of different grouping that you can do in our system with groups. So while I'm not going into that, it's very powerful and it makes it good for the financial statements, but it also increases the functionality of this report for your clients. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to be showing today. I'm going to look and see if I find any questions in here that I can answer, that are easy to answer in this type of environment. So one question is, how does deposit online work exactly? I mean, basically I'm not quite sure what the question means, but what it does is the client gets the email. Let's say that they're paying you. They get the email. You sent an email out to your client, and with your invoice, they choose to pay it online using the digital checks. They'll get an email. They'll enter a little bit of information about their account one time, and then the money will be taken out of their account and just automatically deposited into your account. And the second point is once it's been done, all the transactions behind it are automatically done. And the next question is, I guess, is almost the same. Does the vendor enter their information? The best way is for them to enter their information. They do it one time, and then going forward, it's always set up. How long does it take for the money to hit the bank account? The first time, I think it was 5 or 6 days, and after that, it was usually 3 days or less. Although I didn't show the bank feeds, but how many months can we go back with the bank feed feature? When you're first starting with bank feeds, you can only go back 90 days. Now, if you set up bank feeds, say that you started with a client now for next year, and you set up the bank feeds, but you haven't gone and actually brought in any information yet. Come April, you'll be able to go back all the way to today to get the information. Although that's not the way we recommend to do it. It's so easy to bring the information in. We recommend bringing it in each month or more frequently, depending upon your situation. The question is, how do you activate the footer content? You just go in there and enter the information. Once it's in there, it will automatically print. Can the ship to box be removed? Yeah, there was a little, when I was on that screen, on the customized invoice screen, there's a little box that you can choose to have the ship to either be there or not be there. And here it says for any invoice template. I have to admit, I'm not positive that it can be removed on all the templates. So there may be one template where it's automatically there, but I do believe it can be removed on all of them. And there's a question here, why can I not see reports for years that are already closed? This is probably, maybe it's a question for support. Maybe you should call in, because when you're using the system, generally you can print a report for any of the 2 years that have been closed, not further back than 2 closed years though. So if you're just wondering why, maybe you got the impression from what I showed that you can't do it, then the answer is you can, but if you're actually having an issue, then I would contact support on it. And here is somebody who's wondering why they're not seeing the customer tab or other tabs. Sorry, I thought I had the phone turned off here. And the reason why you wouldn't see the customer tab or any of those tabs on your screen is if that client is not signed up for bookkeeping. You'll actually see, you should see the customer tab, but you won't see all the options under customer. All you'll really see there is just the customer. And same thing for expenses. You won't see all the options under it. The question about who is billed for the digital checks, it's whoever is sending out the request is the one who's billed. So it actually will be billed to your customer when they sign up. And one final question: what is the cost for the checks I owe to the accounting firm? The fee is the same no matter who you are. It's $1 per check. That's done. Thank you very much. I hope you got a lot out of this. We have a lot of good features, a lot of good ways for you to offer more to your clients, which will be good for your clients and good for you. Any comments that you have about what you would want to see in a webinar, or any comments about what you would want to see in the software, once again, you can direct to me, dmunnell, DMUNNELL, at accountantsworld.com. Thank you. And one other question. No, there is no CPE for these webinars. Thank you.